Welcome to the 2021 F1 in Schools Regional Finals for London North. My name's Mark, I'll be your host here for the show, and it's my great pleasure to introduce our Master of Measurements and Head Scrutineer, Mr. Nelson Vale.
Hello everyone.
Welcome to the show, Nels. We've got a jam-packed show coming up for you, so let's take a look at what's coming up. First of all, Nels, we're going to meet the teams, find out who's competing in the London North Regional Final this year, and I think they're going to introduce themselves as well.
Nice.
Nice to see. We've got a message of support from one of our regional coordinators who aren't obviously with us, and we're obviously not in London North now. We're at the F1 in Schools HQ up here in the Denford factory in West Yorkshire, but we're going to get a message of support from the region. We've also got a studio expert with us, Nelson. How exciting. We've got somebody in the studio who knows more about F1 in Schools than we do, considerably more as well. So we're going to be getting the expert verdict on the work of some of the teams, and then, Nels, the big one, the one you've been waiting for.
Racing!
It's the racing. Of course, next show is going to be the awards ceremony, so today is just all about the teams and the racing, but of course that is plenty for us to get our teeth stuck into. Right, if you're just sat at home or tuning in for the first time wondering, what on earth is all this F1 in School stuff all about? It sounds cool and these two guys seem pretty crazy, but what is it all about? Here's a little explainer just to help you.
What is F1 in Schools?
F1 in Schools is a global STEM challenge, working with industry partners to provide an exciting and challenging educational experience. A group of 3 to 6 students form a team, think of a name, allocate job roles, and start to design their miniature Formula 1 car of the future. The teams follow a systematic engineering design process to manufacture and race their cars, making sure they comply with a comprehensive set of technical regulations. To do this, they use professional CAD software, like Autodesk Fusion 360, and manufacture their car components using CNC machines. Once the cars are painted and assembled, they take to the track to race. Powered by compressed gas along a 20-metre racetrack, the cars are capable of speeds over 75 km per hour. The racing is fast and exciting, but there is more to the challenge, as it inspires learning not only in STEM subjects, but wider skills including project management, marketing, teamwork, innovation and communication. These wider skills are assessed by judges from education and industry. At competitions, the teams submit their cars and portfolios and also give a project presentation. F1 in Schools operates globally from ages 9 to 19, with teams taking part in school, regional and national level competitions. With the winners progressing at each stage, only the very best make it through to the World Finals. F1 in Schools is a life-changing experience for all involved, with many success stories of competitors who've come through F1 in Schools and have gone on to achieve significant outcomes in their lives. For some, that means working in Formula 1, where the experience of F1 in Schools serves as the ideal grounding for the challenges and demands of elite-level competition.
Yeah, good to see a little bit more behind the scenes of what goes on in F1 in Schools. Well, I hope that's kind of enlightened you as to our world of F1 in Schools, but let's bring a bit of enlightenment now, Nelson, to the teams competing in the North London Regional Final. So let's take a look at them as they line up on the grid. Here we are, pin drop in the map, London North, kind of ish area. Nelson, let's start from the top then. We've got Chaos.
We have Team Blue Wyvern.
Yeah, we've got Falcon 1.
Destiny Flare.
Speed Demons.
Cyclone.
Marlin with a 1.
Phenomenon.
Strella.
The Battlers.
Aegis Racing.
Peregrine.
Photo Dash Me Racing.
Vertex Racing.
Anemoy Racing.
Eclipse.
Team IQ.
And Vulcan Racing.
Yeah, there they are. I mean, that's us kind of giving it a vague, lukewarm go. But now, as we know the teams introduce themselves so much better than we do, should we give them a go?
Oh, please.
Let's hear it from the teams.
Hello, we are Team Cyclone and we are from Haberdashers Arts Boys School.
Hi, we're Team Marlin.
Hi, we're Team Phenomenon.
Hi, we're Team Peregrine.
Hi, we're Photo Me Racing.
Hi, we're Team Wyvern.
Hello, we're Eclipse and Queen Elizabeth Scrabble.
Hello, we're Team IQ. See you at race day!
Lovely to see the teams, Nels, isn't it? And great to see those smiley faces in what has been think everybody will agree, a pretty testing year, not just for F1 in Schools teams, but everybody in education.
Such challenging times, weren't they? And they still are. I mean, to have so many teams competing in this event just shows that teams did overcome difficulties of having the schools closed or the labs closed, if not being able to contact with each other, just doing a lot of meetings via Zoom. But in the end, they have produced a car, they have sent the car for racing, and we're good to go. So, look, they've done it. They deserve a massive congratulations and a big round of applause.
I think they're going to get one from us, aren't they? To all the teams out there, congratulations and welcome from everybody here in the studio, F1 in Schools HQ. London North, you've done yourselves proud. I mean, Nelson, you mentioned it, the cars have been flooding in, the work's been flooding in, the judges have all been bombarded with work from the teams, submissions, videos, PDFs, the PowerPoints, everything has just been coming in thick and fast, so the teams really have responded amazingly. Such a vibrant region, isn't it, London North?
It is.
We look forward to our road trips every year. It's the bit of the year where we don't spend many weeks or weekends at home. We do a lot of driving around the country. Just to commemorate this fact, Nelson, and it's something that I like to do just to fill in the void that's left by us not driving around the UK. Is I bought you a little present from the region.
I didn't get you a present.
I bought you a little present from the region. This is from a North London drinks manufacturer. I think this is actually quite a kind one, Nels. This is London Peach Iced Tea. There you go. There's a glass. And there's your peach iced tea. See what you make of that.
Right.
What I'm doing now is I'm just slowly turning the tables back from when we gave you a bottle of Tizer to drink from Scotland, which I think you said tasted like medicine, didn't you? Medicinal.
Good. It was the first time.
Let's have a go. Thank you. Yeah, Tizer was probably a little step too far. Thank you very much, Nelson. There you go, London iced tea. Let's see.
Cheers.
Oh yeah, the taste of London. There it is. Oh, very malty. Yeah.
It's very good. Very good.
Crikey, that'll keep us going. Nelson, that is all yours. Compliments.
I'll put it here and hope that Ronaldo doesn't take it away.
Very good. Lovely stuff. Right, it is at this point in the show that it's not just myself and Nelson sat here as Nelson enjoys yet another sip of his sugary beverage, that we can introduce our third member of the studio team, and it is none other than Mr. Lawrence Vines on Studio Cam 2. Lawrence, welcome to the studio.
Oh, thank you.
Great to have you here, Lawrence. Are you excited about getting involved?
Oh, really excited to see the cars race. I've been having a really close look at all of them and all of the work the teams have been submitted, and I have to say, this region, so many teams, so much good work. I can't wait to get going.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, Lawrence, it's something that we always look forward to, going down to London, seeing the teams come back every year. So many teams as well. I think we've got 18 teams through to this regional final. I mean, Lawrence, you mentioned there you've had a quick look at some of the work the teams have been doing, but I mean, if anyone's just out there going, who's this Lawrence Vines guy? I mean, to us, you're a celebrity. You've competed all through the competition. You're now a judge. You're now obviously a presenter and pundit. But just take us back a few years, Lawrence. I know your journey started a few years ago, so just talk us through it.
So I started out competing in the F1 in Schools in the professional class in 2017, up north at the Yorkshire Regional Finals. 3 years later, we finally made it to the World Finals, and really able to capitalise on that. Car, maybe slightly underperforming, P31, made us fight for every other point, and we managed to finish third on the podium, which I have to say, it was the most amazing experience.
Well, and do you know what, from mine and Nelson's point of view, seeing you, because obviously having seen you from your journey all the way through F1 in Schools up to that point, yeah, it was a real proud moment for us to see you guys not just up there on your own, but with Evolve UK taking the World Finals Championship that year as well. Having 1 and 3 on a podium was just a real nice moment, and took us back to that day, didn't it, Nelson, when we rocked up at Silverstone and a young Lawrence Vines gave us this quote, this lovely little quote here, which is, "Sir, this morning was great. I got up, put on my team uniform that we designed, got my team together, and thought, I'm driving to Silverstone to race the car I designed and made and compete against the other teams. This is a good day." That was it, Lawrence, many, many years ago. Was that 2017 or 18?
2017.
2017.
My very first nationals.
A lot of water under the bridge since then, but as you say, world finalist, podium sitter, and congratulations on that. Lawrence, great to have you here in the studio. We're going to be coming back to you later on in the show. You've got some in-depth analysis about the teams, I know, so we will come back to you for that. But for now, Nels, we are getting closer and closer to the moment you're waiting for. Before we do that, obviously F1 in Schools can only really operate with the support of some inspirational individuals, teachers and organisations around the UK. And London North is no exception to this. So last week we caught up with one of our friends, Rob McGowan at Harlow College, who's got a special message for the teams competing this year.
My name is Robert. I'm from Harlow College in Essex. I'm the learning coordinator for our engineering department, and I coordinate our F1 in schools events. We wanted to try and create a link between our local schools and the college. Obviously at the college we have people from 16 upwards, but we wanted to try and create some links with younger people at schools round about. We also wanted to just raise STEM as a whole across the college and get other departments involved. It's really, really good for team building, and what it also does is it puts students into positions that they may not be in normal school and college life, so they have to become almost like a sort of mini business and become a little sort of professional business, if you like. So it's really good for that. And I think that's where they sort of developed most. In a normal week, we try to bring it into some of the subjects, but mostly we do it outside of class. So if the students have a sort of free period during the day, or just a short time after we finish, then that's how we do it. For the teams, trying to manage their time and also trying to meet all the really critical deadlines for F1 in schools. I think that's what they find most challenging. A flexible project, so you can integrate different parts of the F1 in schools program into lots of different subjects. And also from a teacher's point of view, it's really good to just switch off from normal day-to-day stuff and do something that's really fun, because the teaching staff here enjoyed it just as much as the students, so it was really good to get involved. Just do it. We'd obviously give everyone the best of luck. Don't be worried about not having enough time. We see it worry lots of teams and students. Everything will come together on the day and it'll be fantastic. We'll love it. So.
Absolutely love that F1 in schools in 3 words. Just
do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thanks for that, Rob. Really, really good little cut VT from you there, and lovely to hear that message of support for the teams in the region and beyond. Now, Nelson, we're going to refer to them quite a lot throughout the show, throughout the racing, the different classes in F1 in schools and the structure to the competition. So in case you're sort of sat there for maybe for the first time hearing about F1 in schools, or maybe you're competing for the first year, here's just a little explainer video to go into a bit more detail about what is involved in all the classes. Formula 1 in schools is split into 3 classes of entry: entry class, development class and professional class. Think of these as stepping stones, much like Formula 3, Formula 2 and Formula 1.
At regional finals, entry, development and professional class teams compete alongside each other.
They share a few things in common in the competition.
For example, the competition format, which is the same for all classes. They all get the same time on track, with 4 races each.
The judging categories are the same, albeit some of the assessables vary in size. Where they differ, the technical regulations set out for each class.
Entry, development and professional class designed to different rules. Awards categories are slightly different, so teams get the chance to fight for awards in their own class. And progression opportunities to the UK national finals and beyond differ for each class. In entry class, teams are awarded points in 6 areas: scrutineering and aesthetics, design and engineering, a verbal presentation, a research mission to find out what's next in F1 in schools, and the points for racing. A grand total of 480 points are up for grabs in entry class. Development and professional teams are awarded points in 7 areas, encompassing the design process and marketing activities needed to get to F1 in schools. A grand total of 970 points are available for all teams. Entry class is the ideal starting point for F1 in schools for 11 to 14-year-olds for 1 year only. In entry class, teams compete for the chance to be regional champions, for the privilege to be invited to the UK national finals as a special guest. There's no cost to entry, so the only financial challenge to teams is to create their car. This must be manufactured in one of 3 ways. Either handmade using traditional workshop tools and skills from the F1 model block, 3D printed as a solid component part with just moving axles and wheels, or fully CNC machined using a 3D CAD file before being machined on equipment such as a Denford CNC router. Teams must produce a simple 5-page portfolio detailing the design and manufacture process of their car. A 5-minute verbal presentation to wow the judges with their journey as a team, and the option to create a team pit display for their area on race day. Let's take a closer look at the dev class then, which is for 11 to 19-year-olds for 1 year only. Here cars are a step up from entry, but still some way short of the pro class rules. Development class offers the first opportunity to progress to the World Finals. To get there, the team will need to become a UK national champion by making it through from the regional finals. There's a small charge of £75 to enter. Teams must make 1 CNC manufactured race car, 2 5-page portfolios, engineering drawings, a 5-minute verbal presentation, and a purpose-built marketing pit display. The professional class represents the highest tier of F1 in schools. Here, competitors from 11 to 19 years can compete for as many years as they wish, with the ultimate goal to arrive at the F1 in schools World Finals. Accessibles are much the same as development class, but the pro class have 2 10-page portfolios to produce. The top teams from both regional and national finals get the chance to progress for the ultimate dream of competing at the F1 in schools World Finals. Let's take a look at the cars then side by side. In F1 in schools, entry development to professional class cars share lots in common, but they also differ in some crucial ways. Let's start with weight. Entry class must start at 65 grams minimum, where development class get a small advantage from having a 60 gram minimum. Professional class can create the lightest cars with just a 50 gram minimum weight. In entry class, teams must start with a no-go zone, a minimum volume for the chassis of the vehicle. This comprises of a basic shape that the teams design their aerodynamic structures around in an effort to create a safe but fast race car. Development class teams must use a slightly modified no-go zone, allowing a bit more freedom for design. The professional class must simply include a virtual cargo, a much smaller volume which allows for much more freedom with the aerodynamic surfaces. Both the entry class and the development class use a standard F1 in schools wheel, whereas professional class get to design, test, modify and finesse their own custom wheels using any materials they see fit. Again, the entry and development class share a standard axle, while professional class can choose their own, with many teams choosing to run low friction bearings as well. All teams are powered by an 8-gram compressed air power pack. This, combined with the minimum weights, can lead to average speeds of 40 km an hour in entry class, up to 50 km an hour in the development class, and an eye-watering 75 km an hour in the professional class. Blink and you'll miss them as our teams race down the 20-metre F1 in schools track, but will any team have what it takes to break the 1-second barrier?
Well, there you have it.
Do you know what a CO2 canister says to another CO2 canister?
I can't believe you waited to now to do this. Go on, Nels. What does a CO2 canister say to the other canister? That is literally it. That is the punchline. That's the joke. I don't know what it... Yeah,
come on,
fair enough.
Come on,
yeah,
guys.
right.
Back home. Come
all
on.
right, Nels. Yeah, I'll give you that. You can have it. Oh, moving swiftly on.
We're going to explain the race format.
We're going to explain the race format. I knew I was just absorbing your comedy cannonball.
So good that you just...
Oh, that's one word for it. Right, yes we are. Nelson, we're getting to that point in the show where we're about to go racing, so I think it's probably worth explaining to the guys and girls out there how the racing will work so they know what to expect from each round. So Nelson, can you talk us please through what happens?
Right, so all the cars will race 4 times at a time. Will race, but out of those 4 races, what I meant is they're going to race twice in each of the lanes. Now the lowest team number will start in lane 1, and we will swap lanes after race 2. There will be no reaction times used, This is just purely automatic racings, and not any breakages, if any, will be fixed by F1 Schools judges.
And of course, Nelson,
In the end,
fastest car award is for the fastest compliant
car.
Yeah, so no fastest car award if you're fastest, but you break which of the regulations?
Performance regulations.
Right, so we're looking at in the scrutineering for any cars with a clean sheet of scrutineering performance regs specifically. So yeah, all the race times, of course, will still tally for points. So, you know, the car at the top of the times and all the way down through the rankings will still get the points associated with that, but the fastest car award just for the fastest compliant car.
To win that beautiful acrylic plaque, yeah, you need to be fully compliant on any performance regulations.
Trophy, exactly, Nelson. Thank you for that, Nels. That leaves us no more chatting to do, Nels, because now officially it is time to go racing. And up first, it is the entry class. Lawrence, I believe you've got a little bit of information on the first two teams on track.
So we've got two very striking cars to start our racing today. So Blue Wyvern appear to have brought a stretch limo. This is by far the longest car I've seen so far in our regional finals. Possibly one of the advantages to that is that you can really stretch out those features so that the angles on the body are very shallow, not producing much resistance to the air. But in contrast, in the left lane, we've got Chaos, and I'm loving that livery. Real hot pink there, and a very short car in comparison, actually. One of the things that we found is quite a key differentiating factor is the weight, and these cars are both very light, almost at that 65 gram limit, so I think it's too close to call.
Yeah.
But I will make a call on Blue Wyvern. What do you think, Mark?
What do I think of Blue Wyvern? I think it's, I mean, you can tell the wheelbase is massive. The body is stretched out. You're right. The length of the car isn't going to give them an advantage in terms of track length because, of course, the start of the race, the front of the car has to be behind the start line. So the car has to start from the same place, it has to finish in the same place. Lawrence, I'm going to stick my neck out there and say that I think long wheelbase and long car equals greater stability, and as you said, equals smoother, less abrupt features. I'm going to say it's quick. What are you going to say?
I say the same.
Oh,
well,
that's boring. We agree.
I think that Chaos will rule.
Yeah, I love this livery. I mean, Lawrence, you mentioned it, hot pink. I know you're a big fan of hot pink, and that is quite some livery. Lovely matching the logo as well. You know, a bit of brand consistency there. Well, Nelson, I think you've probably sat there for too long now going, come on, let's go racing. Do you want to get out to the track and see how these cars perform?
Yes, please.
Let's do it. Let's head out onto the track for race number 1.
So race number 1 with Team Chaos in lane 1 and Team Blue Wyvern in lane 2. And there we have it with Team Blue Wyvern taking it with a 1.311 against a 1.353, not very far away from Team Chaos. So,
was that right?
You were right.
Get in. Not very often does that happen, Nelson, but yes, go on.
This is just the first race.
It is, yes. We've seen this before. We've seen this with many teams in the regionals, that the first race, you sort of take that and you go, okay, that's one run now. The cars have done a single run. As the races progress and as you go through the races, we often see that sometimes the axles, the wheels, when we get to the pro class, and Lawrence, I'm sure you'll talk about this later on in great detail, the bearings can have an impact on the performance curve, as it were, how the cars perform between race 1 and race 4. So, Nelson, you poised it beautifully. We're going to head to the track and see if race number 2 follows the same pattern or if Chaos can strike back with that hot pink livery.
As you can see, they are both in the same lane yet. And there we go.
Ooh, I think it's an even bigger advantage there.
Oh, and now we have Blue Wyvern again with a 1.351 against a 1.475 from Team Chaos.
So Nelson, we've just seen there how Blue Wyvern have finished the race first, but they also crossed the split gate timing line first as well. Can you just explain to us what the split gate is for on the track?
Of course I can, Mark. So the split gate is a device that we have kind of middle track, and this is to record how far are the cars going at a specific point, because then we have another gate in the end of the track to record who arrives first. But what happens sometimes is the car that is actually crossing the split gate first, it's not the one who wins.
Interesting, fascinating. Lawrence, is there a reason then why the car's performance might change over the course of the track? So maybe, like Nelson just said, maybe a car could cross the split line first, but then the other car could finish first? What's going on there?
So the sector gate, which records the split time, has been strategically placed because the CO2 cartridge, which powers the car, doesn't actually last for the whole race. So at some point it stops running on the power of CO2 and is actually coasting. So the sector gate is placed there. So up till that point it's powered, and after that it's coasting to the finish and relying on the lack of resistance in the wheels and the lack of drag on the car just to get it over the finish line that bit faster.
Interesting. So literally we have two different sectors on the track, where sector 1 is acceleration and powered phase, and sector 2 is, as you say, cruise phase, was it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay, interesting. So we'll see differences in the cars then, whether we've got, lots of mechanical friction going on in the wheels, or whether we've got slippery aerodynamic surfaces. Really fascinating. One to keep an eye on, definitely, as we progress through the races. Nelson, we've just been delaying a bit because obviously the cars come back between race 2 and 3 to be swapped lanes. I think we're now ready out on the track to head out for race number 3.
So in race number 3, as you can see, now we have the cars in the different lanes, with Blue Wyvern in lane 1 and Chaos in lane 2. And it's Blue Wyvern that takes it again with 1.340, but this is an excellent example how Team Chaos actually got through the split gate first.
So there we have it. We had the difference then between the launch phase, like Lawrence was saying, and the cruise phase in the second part of the track. So did we just see an actual overtake in F1 in schools?
Actually overtake.
We saw a genuine overtaking manoeuvre. Well, congratulations to Blue Wyvern there. Brilliant stuff. Well, we're going to head out to the track then for the final time. Nelson, if you can call us over race number 4.
Right, final race. Look how good the cars look at the start.
Yeah, no damage still.
And lights off.
Whoa, that looks close.
That was close, with Blue Wyvern again with a 1.303, but look, a 1.307 for Team Chaos. So very, very close, but Team Blue Wyvern taking all 4 races.
Yeah, but just by the tiniest of margins. That not even that, 0.0044 thousandths of a second at the very end there, separating both teams. I think was that both their quickest times at the very end.
They were the quickest time.
Cracking performance. Of course, Nelson, you're going to say about the racing points.
It's very important to say that it's not about beating the team on the other lane. It's about the times recorded on the 4 races. Those times are going to give you the points. So there's a quite complicated formula calculating through the average, but it's not just the fastest time that matters. It's not beating the other team on track. It's the performance during the 4 races.
Yeah, you don't want to talk us through that formula, do you, Nelson?
No.
Okay, excellent. We'll consult the matrix.
I would have to call our master of Excel, Mr. John, and I think he's busy.
John the Oracle would happily explain to you all over a matter of hours how that formula works, but now is not the time. Brilliant stuff. Well, we're going to head out to the track again. So, Lawrence, over to you on the tech pad to talk us through the next 2 cars up on track, please.
Okay, so you might notice that these 2 cars look a little different, and that's because our first pairing used the F1 in Schools model block that's mandatory in the development and professional classes as the basis of their car, whereas in entry class you are actually allowed to use any material you'd like to make the car, and we see that both of these cars are 3D printed. Now, that seems to have come with a little bit of a weight disadvantage possibly for them. These cars are about 15 grams, 20 overweight. And I think Nelson might explain to us a little bit about the 3D printing process and how they can maybe get that weight down a bit.
Nelson, over to you in the studio.
Yeah, so a tip for all the teams. So when you are 3D printing a part, any part, or in this case the full body of the car, there's several ways how you can 3D print. So the 3D printer can just do layer after layer and do a very heavy and strong, solid part. Or you can choose, the 3D printer will have some options to try and choose kind of hollow shapes, kind of honeycomb shapes that will be a strong but very, very, very light.
And this is called the infill, isn't it? What happens between the surfaces that you see, on the outside, I guess, of your model. So it's
exactly. So instead of having a fully solid part, you can have a much, much lighter just by changing the structure inside.
So really, from the outside, the cars would look exactly the same. But there's a sort of a hidden lightweight element there. Very Colin Chapman, that. Excellent stuff. Lovely stuff. Well, thanks, Nelson, for that analysis. Lawrence, is this which of these cars has caught your eye? I mean, do you think Destiny Flare have got this, or Falcon perhaps perhaps your odds-on favourite. Very different
I think,
wings.
Yes, and also quite different designs in general, because Falcon have this wedge-shaped car with this very simple approach, very clean design, and of course those little vertical rear wings, whereas Destiny have gone for quite an intricate design, you could say. Lots of sharp edges. We'll have to see which slices through the air fastest.
Yeah, absolutely. They've gone for this extruded logo, I believe, on the rear wing as well. So it's not just a printed visual logo. It's actually there physically extruded from the wing. So yeah, dramatic looking work. I mean, Falcon 1, love that. That's all. It's got sort of Halloween costume about it, hasn't it?
Love it.
Yeah. Right. Let's see, Nelson, how these two cars perform out on track when we go there for race number 1.
Right, race number 1, in lane 1, Falcon 1, and in lane 2, Destiny Flare. Lights off.
There they go.
There they go.
Ooh.
And we have Falcon 1 taking it with a 1.590, but look, Mark, Destiny Flare, with arriving first at the split gate with a 0.465.
Yeah, so again, there we have it. 2 races, 2 overtakes at the moment. Incredible. 2 pairings, 2 overtakes.
Exciting.
Yeah, really, very much so. So a win there for Scooby-Doo. It is Scooby-Doo, isn't it, that I'm thinking of? I've got the whole ears back in my head. Perhaps I'll have to Google this later and come back to it later in the show, but Falcon 1, loving that style. Right, back to the track, Nelson, for race number 2.
Race number 2, again in the same lane with Falcon 1 in lane 1 and Destiny Flare in lane 2.
It has to be.
Well, if it's Scooby-Doo, where are you? They're in the end of the track.
Oh, love it.
So with Falcon 1 with a 1.594, taking it again, and Destiny Flare with a 1.803. So
Lawrence, over to you on the tech screen. What have you got for us?
And we see that we've had 2 Falcon 1 wins, but both times Destiny Flare was faster in that first sector of the track.
Interesting.
So we see that maybe that they've got that little less bit of resistance upon the start, but that 5 grams extra weight is just hurting them where they cruise to the finish.
Interesting. So that's where the weight sort of starts to really hurt the team, not in the initial launch phase, but in that cruise phase, which of course the cruise phase is the most significant distance on the track, isn't it, Lawrence?
It is. It's approximately 3/4 of the track, and for that phase where you've got a heavier car, that weight will be pushing on the axles, creating that bit extra friction.
Ah, there you go. There you have it, Nelson. Well, that was 2 races. Of course, now the cars are being brought back and swapped over lanes. I can see out there our evil twins just swapping the cars over. Lark and Gelson, I believe, are ready out there. So it's time to head back to the track for race number 3.
So we have Destiny Flare in lane 1 and Falcon 1 in lane 2.
You didn't even see the launch there, it was so quick.
And then we have it with a 1.567, Falcon 1 taking it with Destiny Flare with a 1.691. I think it was race number 4, Mark.
Oh, was that race number 4? Okay, it's been a long week and a long day. Perhaps we need some more delicious London iced tea, Nelson. Maybe we shall have some of that in the next episode. I'm not sure it was, Nelson. I think you're perhaps getting your numbers mixed up there, because I think we're about to head back to the track for race number 4. So Nelson, it's fine. I am frequently corrected, but I think on this occasion I can wag my engineer's finger and say, I think you'll find, Nelson, that we are about to head back to the track for race number 4.
Right, race number 4 with Destiny Flare in lane 1 and Falcon 1 in lane 2.
Nelson, I'll pour you a sugary drink in the meantime.
And we have Falcon 1 taking it again with 1.568 and 1.712 for Destiny Flare.
Oh, there it was. Nelson, there is a sugary drink for you.
That's exactly what I need.
Sip on your London
confused. Sorry, guys.
peach iced tea. Other regional peach iced teas are available, of course. Lovely stuff. Right, thank you, Nelson. Well, F1 in schools, we know a lot of it is about the cars, about the engineering, and about the sort of behind-the-scenes R&D that goes into making these amazing cars. And as Nelson was talking about, the manufacturing techniques, 3D printing, etc. Another massive part of F1 in schools, though, is the verbal presentations, Nels. Quite often the terrifying bit, you've got to stand in front of the judges and talk. So here, just to fill in a little bit more about what goes on in a verbal presentations, here's a quick explainer video.
Quite often the most daunting area of the assessment, teams produce a verbal presentation to deliver to a panel of judges. Here they're graded on technique, composition and subject for a total of 180 points. The judges are looking for strong visuals, contribution from all team members, the team's ability to capture the room with dynamism and energy, and engagement with those listening. Judges are looking for how well the team clarifies the concept and how well their presentation sticks to the time allowed. For subject, they're graded on innovation, collaboration, and the learning experiences that they've gained from F1 in schools. The verbal presentation is a multimedia content production. For regional finals, it's 5 minutes, and for national finals, a 10-minute presentation. Judging a verbal presentation takes a trained ear and a skilled communicator. Our professional judges represent companies from across industry, where quite often communicating an idea is the key to success.
Did you spot the stranger in the room there, Nelson Vale?
That brings me memories.
I'm going to take you back here because you might not have spotted there. I mean, Nelson from behind is quite difficult to spot there in a panel of 3 judges. But you were in that video quickly as a head looking at a verbal presentation there. Back in the day, Nelson, you were a verbal judge, weren't you?
Yeah, I had the experience. Well, I had the opportunity to judge pit display and enterprise, but then I had in 2014 in Abu Dhabi the immense pleasure of doing verbal presentations, and that one of those photos kind of reminds me of one of the best verbal presentations I have ever seen. And the verbal presentation, let me tell you, Mark, it's a really intense moment when the students are face to face with a group of judges, sometimes with a mean face looking at them, and they have 10 minutes to communicate everything that they know about the team. So the teams go with different strategies. Some may dance and sing in the entry class. Some already in development and professional class go by telling their whole story, their whole journey. But it's all about the communication skills, because those are going to be very important for their future.
Yeah, of course. And the verbal presentation, Nels, the way that it's scored by the judges, it's almost more about how you say what you say rather than the actual content itself. It's the delivery, the presentation, isn't it?
Yes, it's the delivery, it's the energy, it's the commitment. But of course they have to tick some boxes in terms of content, but it's all about that passion, and when it comes from the heart, I mean, the judges really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, as Nelson just said, there's a fine balance, isn't there, Lawrence, between, hitting all the points, but also trying to speak from the heart. I mean, you've done this right the way from regional finals to nationals, and then at a world finals. I mean, that must be terrifying to prepare for. How do you get yourself into the frame of mind to go and walk into a world finals verbal presentation and smash it?
Oh, it's terrifying because unlike the other elements, your car gets multiple races. You get your pit display is always there. You have months to build it, but your verbal presentation is a lot of work that leads up to it. But then it's all one shot, all or nothing. Yeah. And I have to say, what you mentioned about speaking from the heart, most teams tend to start with a script for their verbal presentations, just to make sure they're getting all of those content marks, and also to make sure that they meet the all-important time limit. But with the communication, it really does help if it's natural and not kind of wooden and scripted. So definitely worth working towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think our teams, especially when you get to the World Finals, there's no lack of passion, is there now? So they've lived this project for, in some cases 3 or 4 years to get to that point. I mean, it's in there, isn't it? You know what you're talking about. It means so much to you. So that genuine touch is never usually lacking, is it? But nonetheless, terrifying. I think we all agree. But yeah, one of the many things that teams have to prove that they can do in F1 schools. Now, Nelson, in terms of proving what you can do, it's time to prove that a car can go down a track again. And I think, Lawrence, we're going to head over to the tech pad for you to talk us through the last entry class team.
So we've got a single car racing now. So just to let you know, this means that in the opposite lane there won't be a car running. There is a bit of debate whether this makes a bit difference. When you've got 2 cars running at once, there'll be a bit of turbulent wash between the lanes, which might cause the aerodynamics to work a little differently to how you planned. So not necessarily a disadvantage here for Speed Demons racing on their own. I have to say, a very striking car once again. Yeah. Looks a bit like a biplane to me.
Yeah, I would agree, yeah. I mean, an interesting take on this sort of split plane wing, Lawrence. Do we see many of those in the entry class?
No, this is definitely a unique one. I'm loving the team name across the rear wing too. And just a nice design. You can see how it meets all of the rules with the no-go zones around the side pods. Very compact. I think this might be faster than we think.
Interesting, Nelson. It's taking my eye, certainly. I mean, the front is very distinctive. You've got this almost kind of, Yeah, sort of protruding nose, which is incredibly sharp. I mean, you must have had to wear protective handwear at that point when scrutineering.
Yeah, it was a cool car to scrutineer. Let me just point out that we have a certain number of dimensions here on the screen, but during scrutineering we are measuring more stuff.
Yeah.
So it may not be fully compliant, but that's how we learn. I mean, when you guys receive your detail scores back, I mean, if there's any penalties, the only thing, our best advice is to take that feedback, try and do better, and come back again. But love that rear wing. Really, I agree with Lawrence. Really reminds me of some traditional aeroplanes.
Yeah.
But right, I think we just need to know how it does on track.
Well, Nelson, I know the man for the job. You can talk us through it as we head out to the racetrack for race number 1.
So as we can see, Speed Demons in lane number 1.
Oh,
look how great the car
ready
looks.
for takeoff there.
And there we go. And what's happening now, it's our track system is just waiting to see if there's a car crossing the line on lane number 2. So taking a little bit of time, and there we have it with a 1.634.
Okay, so perfectly good first time. I think no damage reported by the track guys either, Nelson. So no issues there for Speed Demons. I mean, a reasonably good time. I mean, I think that rear wing, of course, is, should we say, elaborate, extravagant maybe. It may be that the team look at this next year and go, do you know what, we'll go with the single plane wing, but...
You know what I would like to see? Because it's a feature that I don't know if everyone realizes, but all the cars are basically stuck to the track due to a tether line that goes through the tether line guides. What would happen if this car would race without the tether line, with that wing?
Well, I think with the point on the front of that car, there'd be a little orange hole in the roof just up there where there'd be a little exit hole and some 3D printed material probably hanging onto our ceiling. Right, Nelson, ready on track for race number 2, so over to you.
Race number 2, still in the same lane, with Speed Demons in lane 1. All lights are going to go off. And there he goes, fast as lightning.
Can it beat his previous time?
So the track is just calculating again if there's no car arriving on lane 2. And here we have it with a 1.634. Again, a very consistent time between the first and the second race.
Fantastic stuff. So, of course, this is the point at which the track guys are bringing the car back. They're going to swap it over onto the other side of the track. I mean, Lawrence, this whole lane 1, lane 2 thing, I know we get the cars to race on both sides of the track, but is there a tangible difference between the sides usually?
Oh, well, I've heard about teams having favourite lanes, which I'm not sure I get. Sometimes when going to events, you know, in between your judging, you get to sneak a glance at the racing, and you might think that you see a car winning a lot more often in one lane than another. But I wouldn't say that was a massive difference. We can see the track guys work incredibly hard to make both lanes equal, and of course, each car races twice in both lanes, so
yeah, we try to even it out, don't we, Nelson? And it is worth saying for the guys at home that all the track equipment, the launch pods, the lanes, the tether line, everything is calibrated, is measured, and is standardised to the best of the track team's ability. And of course, this is the same track team that doesn't just deliver the UK primary class regional finals, secondary class regional finals, and the UK national final. This is the team that also runs the world finals. So these guys are the very best. I think we are ready to head back to the track now for race number 3. So over to you again.
So in race number 3, as you can see, the car is in the opposite lane. Now in lane number 2, Speed Demons. So with lights off. So we just need to wait a couple of seconds. So look, the wing was designed in a way to avoid the deceleration system, and no breakages at all. So a 1.590, so I think the time is improving.
Yeah, looks like it is. So maybe the car just getting gradually quicker as the races go on there. I mean, Lawrence, is that something that you saw from your time in the competition, that the car could increase in speed? I guess there's a difference here between, you know, the way an entry class car is set up as compared to a professional class car, but is that sort of speed profile something that you saw where cars gradually get quicker?
It's definitely possible because, you know, when you start out, the car hasn't run for quite a while, if ever, because generally you want these cars brand new when they're going out on track. So just a few races and they can, all of the moving parts can just get in their stride, warm up a bit and maybe just line up. So definitely. It's nice to see this car gradually building on its performance.
It does seem to be, yeah. Well, let's head back to the track, Nelson, for the final time and see if this car can go even quicker in race number 4.
So final race, race number 4. There he is, ready to go. And we just need to wait a little bit more, guys, for the time to come up on screen.
Yeah, building the tension here for the final race.
And there we have it with a 1.608.
There we have it.
Very well done. I think consistency here was key throughout all 4 races. So we'll see how they get in the overall leaderboard.
Yeah, of course, Nelson, you mentioned before how the race times and the consistency that teams can show contributes towards that final point score. Of course, it's a complicated formula that works this out, but the message here is that consistent performances guarantee the better point scores. No good having 1 great time and 3 poor races or 3 DNFs even. Those 4 consistent times will put Speed Demons in good stead with the points, I think. Great stuff, right. Well, we're going to move on now to the final leaderboard, Nelson, because of course that was the final race in the entry class. So let's take a quick look now at that leaderboard. And there we have it, Nelson. So Blue Wyvern from Haberdashers Askers Boys School, 1.303. And look at the different, look at the margins at the top there. Chaos just missing out on top spot by 4 thousandths of a second. Super close racing. Well done for the entry class teams, and that brings us neatly now into our next round of racing, which of course is the development class. Mr. Lawrence Vines, I believe you're primed and ready to talk us through the first 2 teams up on track in the dev class.
So for our first race of the dev class, we have the Battaliers and Anemoy Racing. We've got a really wide car for the Battaliers. We can see that from the top profile it's almost rectangular with those squared off side pods. They're definitely not letting any air get in between those wheels to create any turbulence. And Anemoy Racing, bit of a different approach. We've got a narrower car there, and we can see actually it's got a single plane rear wing over the chamber, unlike the Battaliers who have got it split either side. So we might actually see that despite what looks like quite a large profile for the Battaliers, that being that bit taller, Anemoy might actually have a very similar frontal area. So looking like a close one when they're both 0.6 of a gram apart too.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, they are super close on weight. I mean, great little spot there, Lawrence, about the sort of surface profile. It looks like Battaliers have gone for wide but low, whereas Anemoy have gone for a slightly more, tall but quite skinny, quite narrow stance there, and the wheelbase massively different as well. We saw this before, didn't we, with the first 2 entry class teams, where long wheelbase and I sort of fluked it by calling long wheelbase, greater stability potentially.
And that definitely aided the team in the second sector we saw with Blue Wyvern.
It seemed to. So interesting now to see whether the Battaliers will be stronger in that second sector of the track, or whether Anemoy Racing can just launch out of blocks that much quicker and maintain an advantage. Well, Nelson Vale, I can see you sat there eagerly anticipating race number 1. So let's head out to the track, and Nelson, you can talk us through the action.
Well, first of all, I hope I'll pronounce the team names right, but we have the Battaliers in lane 1 and Anemoy Racing in lane 2, with Anemoy Racing taking it with a 1.386. I mean, the Battaliers not very far away. I guess there's margin to improve here.
Yeah,
so a very close split time there. So yeah, I mean, exciting. I'm excited for the second race.
Yeah, normal service has been resumed. I've been proved completely wrong, so that's good to see. Back to situation normal. Nelson, I believe we're ready for race number 2 now.
Race number 2.
Come on, Battaliers. Prove me semi-right.
So again, both cars in the same lanes, with the Battaliers in lane 1 and Anemoy Racing in lane 2. And there was... Look, the Anemoy Racing took it with a 1.416, again a 1.469 of the Battaliers.
Yeah, nice. Now, so I'm particularly enjoying your semi-Portuguese pronunciation here.
Semi-Portuguese mixed with French.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, why not?
Battaliers.
Battaliers. I love that.
Battaliers.
Les Battaliers. How many times can we say Battaliers without people switching off? Right, don't go make yourselves a cup of tea. We are continuing with the action. Of course, the race team now just bringing the cars back, swapping over those lanes, making sure that neither car gets an advantage from any conditions, atmospheric or pressure related or moisture or even air conditioning systems having any influence whatsoever on the proceedings. The cars are now back at the start and ready to race, I think, in race number 3. So Mr. Nelson Vale, over to you.
So race number 3, as you can see, the cars have now swapped lanes with Anemoy Racing in lane 1 and the Battleurs in lane 2.
Oh, hello. Go on, Battleurs.
So we have the Battleurs taking it with a 1.435 against a 1.675 from Anemoy.
That is remarkable, Nelson, because we've just seen there Anemoy Racing comfortably winning the first 2 races, but then lane reversal, the Battleurs have suddenly come out of nowhere, quickest to the split gate and then quickest to the end, and I think 1.435, was that quicker than Anemoy Racing's first time? That's right up there.
This just means that in the F1 in Schools track, anything can happen.
Wow, there you go. You got the Nelson finger as well there. Interesting. Right, well, I believe that we're ready to go back to the track, I think, for the final time. This will be fascinating to see, Nelson, whether the Battleurs can make it 2 each and really kind of make this advantage or this apparent advantage on lane 2 count. So back we go to the racetrack now for race number 4.
And race number 4, let's see. Love the colours.
Yeah, fascinating little pairing this. Oh, and it seems not.
We have Anemoy Racing taking it with a 1.368 and the Battleurs with a 1.485.
I think, Nels, the Battleurs car was just inspired by our multiple pronunciations of their name, spurred it on to success in that 3rd race, and then perhaps used all of its available energy before race 4. But still, a fantastic performance there. Anemoy Racing, I think, really consistent throughout, and obviously, like we've said a few times, that the point score will be reflected there. But yeah, the Battleurs, I mean, good battling performance there, I think, in race number 3.
Well done for both.
Yeah, well done both teams. Lawrence, you're up again, and we're going to go to the next 2 cars on track. So over to the tech pad and Mr. Vines. We are going to see our next 2 dev class teams, Phenomenon, a word that Nelson takes particular pleasure in pronouncing, and Strella.
Wow, I'm looking forward to seeing these 2 cars race. We can see that Phenomenon is right at the 60 gram minimum weight, so they'll really be pushing to put the very top time on the leaderboard. And in terms of width, these cars are very similar, and same in height really, but the wheelbase is where the real difference between these cars lies, with Strella with that really, really long wheelbase. So perhaps we'll see them, as we said before, just bringing it back in that cruise sector of the race. Very excited to see how this goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're very different cars, like you say, Lawrence. I mean, in almost every single way, the design and manufacture looks quite different. The finish as well. We can see a gloss finish on the Strella car. It almost looks like a matte finish there for the Phenomenon car. I mean, we've talked a bit about this, Lawrence, in previous shows about the difference between a gloss and a matte finish, and we were, debating this in terms of, the F1 teams even do this right at the top level of motorsport. What is what's the theory behind going with a matte finish over a gloss finish?
So a gloss finish is obviously, just as it looks, very slippy, but the kind of compromise, or not compromise, but difference with a matte finish is that little bit of roughness just slows that lowest layer of air passing over it down, creating these miniature vortices swirling around and dragging air above down. And this really means that the flow just stays attached to the surfaces much better. The air's much more energized, so you could find that your aerodynamic features just perform that bit better.
Wow, so the rougher finish, so by sacrificing that really close layer of air just right next to the car, you actually gain more sort of acceleration on the air going above that layer, as it were.
Yes, so that means that the air travelling over the car will really stay closely attached. So behind the car, it comes back in nice and tightly without leaving a massive wake behind, which essentially holds you back like a parachute all the way down the track.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Well, there you go, Nels. We've heard it here. I mean, that thank you, Lawrence, because that kind of hopes to explain a little bit about why some of the F1 team, I mean, Red Bull, we know go with this matte livery, or Ferrari have done as well from time to time. But yeah, interesting just to see. And obviously, some of the teams still think that gloss approach is the best, but good to sort of find out the science behind that. Now, Nelson, I think you're eagerly anticipating these two going head to head. So should we head to the track, Nels?
Yes, please.
Let's do this. Race number 1.
Race number 1 with Phenomenon in lane 1 and Team Strella in lane 2. And there we have it. Oh, that was close, with Team Phenomenon taking it with a 1.307, but not far away Team Strella with a 1.352.
Well, there it is. Yeah, I mean these are really quick times actually, aren't they, Nels? Are we seeing a phenomenon here?
We'll have to wait to see if that phenomenon will really be a phenomenon, because you know what? There's still 3 more races.
There are, and I know you're a big fan of a phenomenon. So let's head out to the track, Nels, and just see if they are super close, aren't they? Just looking again at the times. Let's see if race number 2 is just as close.
Race number 2, same lanes. Let's see. Lights off. Very, very close with Phenomenon taking it and improving their time with a 1.286.
Hello there. Now that is, I mean, this is smelling more and more like a phenomenon, Nelson. You know we love a good phenomenon here at F1 in Schools. Just looking at that then, so Phenomenon quicker to the split gate, quicker to the finish. Strella, I mean actually that 1.409 is a quick time in the grand scheme of things. That is still a relatively fast time. Lawrence, I know you've picked something up from that race.
Yeah, so I was just noticing, we can see that the Strella car is almost 10 grams heavier than Phenomenon, which kind of shows with their beautifully sleek gloss car that maybe their focuses have been a bit different, with Phenomenon maybe focusing on, with that smaller car, lightweighting, whereas Strella really focused on those aerodynamic surfaces. And with such a relatively small margin, given the quite massive weight discrepancy, Strella have really got it just right. So if they can cut that a bit of weight out, I think they could be right up there.
Yeah, well, you've heard it here, folks. Strella is on the brink of success there. Just a couple of little tweaks from Mr. Vines' advice there, and you might be right up there.
In the search for an excellent quality finish, it's so easy just to add extra grams to the car that the team doesn't really want. So my tip to the teams is just get a scale, the most precise scale you can get, and then start weighing all of your car components before you go into the phase of painting the car. That should be the very last thing. So you weigh in your body, you weigh in your wheels and your axles, and then you can calculate, right, what's the margin to the minimum weight, and that's where you want to be very competitive on the track.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Lawrence, did you ever get to a point where you were sort of, you know, looking ahead to the surface finish of the car, and were you trying to bring the car up to the minimum weight with the paint? I mean, presumably you don't start with the car at minimum weight and then add the paint. Is it a case of trying to build it up layer on layer on layer to get to that minimum weight, and if you're not there, just keep adding a bit more?
Well, you do definitely have to build in a margin for that. You can't start at that minimum weight and then add paint, because then you'll be massively over. It was definitely a learning curve for us. I have to say, we probably went through a very similar experience to Strella is having now. So our first few cars were about 10 grams overweight. Performing well, we could see we are along the right lines. But then we managed to strip a bit more weight out of the other parts, and then yes, it's a case of adding your layers of paint and lacquer layer by layer, letting them dry, letting that moisture evaporate, and just seeing where you lie.
There you go, yeah, it's not just as simple as paint by numbers, is it, Nels? Right, I think we're ready to head back to the track, and Mr. Nelson Vale, you can talk us through race number 3.
Right, as you can see, the cars have now swapped lanes with Team Strella in lane 1 and Team Phenomenon in lane 2.
That was tight, wasn't it?
So we have Team Phenomenon taking it again with a 1.321, but Team Strella not that far away with a 1.394.
No, I think fractionally quicker against Strella, so 1.394, just dipping under the 1.4 second barrier there, which is very impressive. And Lawrence has said, suggested it that Strella car has got some impressive engineering, just needs to be brought back down to that minimum weight to be truly competitive. And from taking what I've learned from these shows, it's that cruise phase that the Strella car is perhaps just struggling in now with its carrying a bit of extra weight. So there you go, some lessons for improvement, whoever you are. But I think, Nelson, we're ready to see how this pairing concludes with race number 4.
And finally, race number 4. Cars are ready, looking good. Lights off. And there they go.
Oh, wow.
That was very close, with a 1.419 for Phenomenon, and Team Strella, look, a 1.424. I'm wondering if we had 2 or 3 more races, how much better would the Strella car get?
Yeah, the Strella car was catching up there. I mean, that was 0.005 of a second at the end there, which, Lawrence, is literally that much. You can't really measure it. I mean, that was insanely close. Well, congratulations to both teams. Those 4 races were certainly quite interesting, and good to sort of know, from Lawrence's perspective as well, the differences perceived there with the cars and their construction. Now, We've talked a lot about engineering, and we continue to do so, obviously, with the cars being our centre point of the racing shows. But we know a huge amount goes into F1 in Schools projects away from the engineering and into the enterprise, the sponsorship and the marketing efforts that the teams put in. So just to give you a little bit of an inside track on how that's judged, here's a quick explainer video.
Enterprise judging forms a central part of a team's point score. Teams produce a portfolio, a team identity and a pit display worth 180 points. The judges are looking for evidence of project management, teamwork, sponsorship and marketing, an F1 in Schools project evaluation and the presentation of a document, all counting towards the portfolio score. Team identity is scored on its own, while the pit display takes 3 categories: marketing, graphic design and actual content. With 3 separate assessments, it's a multimedia judging area. For the portfolio, development class produce a 5-page portfolio, where professional class produce a 10-page portfolio. With teams essentially creating their own businesses, our judges need to have experience of this too, with a wealth of experience coming from across industry, from business owners, entrepreneurs, to marketing and sponsorship specialists.
And back to me in the studio. Lawrence, I know you've been taking a closer look at what the teams have done for their enterprise portfolio, so what have you picked out?
Well, I was just going to draw your attention to team identity, because before I'd read a single word in this team's portfolio, I was entranced. So this, of course, is Team Marlin, and we can see we've got a very consistent colour scheme here, and they derive that from their logo. At the centre of that is this Marlin, which their team name is taken from, and then they've got these 3 shades of turquoise, which we can see in the stripes there, and in the stripes at the top of the page. And these 3 shades are used throughout their portfolio. It's really eye-catching, but beyond that as well, this brand consistency and memorable strength of brand is really important when attracting sponsors, because they want to be associated with that strong and also very recognisable brand. So definitely, I would encourage you to work on the presentation of your documents too, because in addition to gaining you some all-important additional marks, you might just snag an extra sponsor because of it.
Ooh, yeah, interesting. So it's about consistency, isn't it, Lawrence? It's not just making each page look beautiful, the car look amazing, the t-shirts look fantastic. It's about drawing everything together, having a, like you suggest there, like a consistent brand approach, 3, set colours that you use, maybe even set fonts, and just apply that across everything.
You make it sound rather generic there. You can still make your portfolio eye-catching with like these little diagrams and all your iconography, but just keeping that consistency throughout really gives a sense of professionalism that I think the sponsors and just everyone following the event really latch onto.
Yeah, and the consistency is the word, isn't it? And it's not just about making stuff look good. It's like you say, attracting sponsors, giving people a sort of believable cause to get behind, and as a team that can only help now, can't it? Yeah. Lawrence, did I pick out there a reference to biomimicry by any chance in the Marlin there?
I think so. So we can see that their team name derives after their logo, or perhaps even vice versa. But I think we might see some hints of biomimicry in their car design too.
Oh, we love it. Are we going to get a fish-shaped car by any chance from Marlin? I hope so.
I think yes.
Well, we'll soon find out, Lawrence, because we're going to head over to the track, and I think Marlin are actually up next on the track. So, Mr. Vines, over to you on the tech pad, and please talk us through the next pairing.
So we can see that their car matches that beautiful turquoise that we've just seen in their portfolio. That consistency really throughout all of the elements of their projects. And actually a battle of the pretty metallic cars, because I have to say Cyclone have done a beautiful job too. With you can see that blue matches their logo, and also that little hint of pink. Very, very nice. But onto the performance side. So we can see that these teams have quite different cars in terms of design, but they're bang on point in terms of weight. Yeah. So we really will see their aerodynamics decide this race. You see Marlin have this curved rear wing. This is a really unique one today, and a bit like the tail of the Marlin logo, and I think they'll be aiming there just to send that turbulent air up and away from the back of the car. Then looking at the Cyclone car briefly, we'll see that they've got this long front wing, slanted front wing plates, just sending that air up and over the front wheels.
Yeah, fascinating pairing, Lawrence. Like you say, a battle of the pretty metallic cars, the PMC GP, as it were, Nelson.
I can see the Marlin. Can't you see the Marlin on the car?
It's there. No,
Look at the rear wing. It's
Yep.
the Marlin jumping out of water.
Oh, he loves it, doesn't he? Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah, absolutely. Pictures of leaping Marlins on a postcard, please, addressed to Nelson Vale F1 in Schools HQ. Nelson, I think you're ready to commentate over the first race, aren't you?
Well, let's
go. I believe that our evil twins out there on the track are prepared and ready. So it's out to the track for race number 1.
Let's see if the power of the Cyclone will match the jump of the Marlin. And lights off, we have Cyclone taking it with a 1.277.
Wow.
But look, a 1.318 from Team Marlin, not that bad, and they actually crossed the split gate first.
This is it. So again, there we see the differentiation in the cars. So of course, Marlin reaching the split gate first, which I guess Lawrence suggests that car accelerates better, has less initial drag and friction, but then perhaps the Cyclone core just that bit more efficient. Maybe the leaping Marlin wing just holding Marlin back in that cruise phase. Interesting to see how they go in race number 2. Of course, race number 1 is usually not the greatest guide of how the form's going to go. We can often see cars speeding up or indeed slowing down through the course of the 4 races. So Nelson, over to you for race number 2.
So as you can see, we have Cyclone in lane 1, Marlin in lane 2. Second race. Oh, that seemed very close. That was Team Cyclone with a 1.308. But look, again, Team Marlin crossing the split gate first.
Okay, so we are getting a common theme here in the
overtaking
in the PMC, the battle of the pretty metallic cars, or yeah.
And I think that could be, we see that the Cyclone car is actually 2 centimetres shorter than the Marlin car. So maybe it's just that little bit less drag in the second phase of the race, as we do see that the Marlin consistently gets that faster start off the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty marginally close is another way of describing this PMC battle. That was a terrible pun. Nelson, I think we're ready to go back to the track for race number 3. Our evil twins out there are indeed ready. Yep, waving their empty gas canisters in the air as if to say, get on with it, Mark. So head across to race number 3. Nelson, over to you.
Race number 3 with the cars in the different lanes now, with Team Marlin in lane 1 and Team Cyclone in lane 2. And, oh, that was close.
Close, wasn't it?
That was Team Cyclone taking it with a 1.284, but a 1.299 from Team Marlin.
And these two teams are close. This time, I guess we saw a different profile for that race, where Cyclone actually reached the split gate first and also the finish gate first. But actually, I think Marlin, over the course of the second part of in the cruise phase there, Lawrence, Marlin looked like they were actually catching up briefly towards the end. I think the gap is less at the end than it was in that initial phase. I mean, is that something to do? Could that be to do with the the wheel systems just gradually loosening up, easing up, or is that potentially Cyclone's car starting to seize in the cruise phase?
I think, well, you see in this shot that there are the harsh brushes at the end of the track, and the car has this massive period over which it accelerates, but only 1 metre or so in which it decelerates completely to 0. So these cars do endure great force over the cycle of the racing.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be unexpected to see a car perhaps lose a bit of speed because of just a bit of wear and tear.
We've seen it before, haven't we, where the car looks fine on on the face of it, but actually it's just a little marginal wear every time that it has to come to that stop, like you're saying, in just a metre. And we said it before, Nelson, that these cars are great at going fast in a straight line, but they have to be good at stopping incredibly quickly and with some considerable force as well. So it's not just a case of outright speed. Okay, Nelson, we're ready to head back to the track then, and across to you for race number 4, sorry.
So race number 4 with Team Marlin in lane 1 and Team Cyclone in lane 2, and we have Team Marlin taking it with a 1.318. There we have it.
There they are. Leaping from the water at the final opportunity there to take a race win. Cyclone actually still reaching the split gate first, but then that time Marlin did just out-drag. So we had an overtake from Marlin right at the end.
What a jump.
Yeah, what a leap indeed. Congratulations to both teams. Well, that was the first pairing there between Marlin and Cyclone. And Lawrence, I believe you're ready for the next 2 teams. So across to the tech pad once again. Mr. Vines, what have you got for us on these 2 distinctive cars?
So now we've got Aegis racing against Peregrine, and we can see we've actually got two quite bulky cars now. So Aegis have this really interesting front wing. We see it's got little walls and it's like a little funnel. So it takes a big section of air and just accelerates it into this narrow section over the front wheels, and they're just looking to get that out of the way, I think, very quickly. A large nose, but that doesn't necessarily make the frontal area larger. I'm very interested to see how that car performs. And on the right-hand lane, we've got Peregrine. They've got quite a different approach to the front wing. They've got flat planes, just sending the air over those wheels, and a wide wedge nose. And yeah, very nice. And we actually see, that it's got a bit of a wider track at the front. Now that should possibly again just assist that stability down the track.
Interesting, right, okay. So almost going for the sort of front wheel drive car approach of stability and width at the front to keep the back in check. I mean, Lawrence, the Aegis racing car, it really strikes me as being unlike anything else we've seen on track. It's almost got kind of a jetliner profile about it's almost got a fuselage, hasn't it? Where you don't see the sort of the CO2 chamber at the rear. It's almost just a continuous fuselage.
I was just thinking, I can't recall anything from their portfolios on this, but this looks like the bullet train to me.
Ah, yeah, okay, good little similarity. Well, Nelson, I know you're intrigued to see how they get on track, so let's head out there now for race number 1.
So race number 1, we have Aegis Racing in lane 1 and Peregrine in lane 2.
Lining up on the runway there, ready for final
lights
approach.
off, and we have Peregrine taking it with a 1.512. So quite a considerable distance there, but I think that's perfectly justifiable because of the weight on Aegis Racing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can tell Aegis have gone for a very different design approach, Lawrence. Is it maybe just a case that this year that the refinement is still to come in terms of getting the weight right down to the minimum? I mean, is the concept one that you think is perhaps interesting but just needs to be finessed a bit?
I think the concept is definitely very interesting and definitely has potential. This is a case of, I think the team's new to the competition, they're experimenting with the design, but they'll carry on learning through their testing and their racing. I think what we're really looking at today is just getting those consistent times in and making sure that they don't have any DNFs or breakages.
Yeah, very wise indeed. Nelson, ready to head back to the track. So for the second race, over to you, my friend.
Second race, so the car's still in the same lanes. Let's see, lights off. And there they go,
That felt a little bit quicker.
Peregrine with a 1.582. So consistency is being key here for both races, and let's see if the magic of swapping lanes will do anything.
Who knows? Maybe that runway is just a bit more polished in lane 2. I mean, you can see there the Aegis Racing wing still intact, still sitting above the brushes there, so no breakages out on track. So good news for both teams, and a thumbs up from build quality point of view there. Nelson, I think we're hearing that the track guys are ready again at super speed there out on track, swapping the cars around. So we're going to head out back onto the track for race number 3.
And in race number 3, you can see that the cars are now in different lanes. So lights off, there they go, and we have Team Peregrine taking it with a 1.492 and Team Aegis Racing with a 1.852, so improving considerably from racing number 2.
Absolutely, yeah, the prophecy has come true, Nelson. You predicted that lane 2 might be the one for them, and it seems to be so. So yeah, Aegis Racing 1.852, that is the best time so far you've set, congratulations. And Nelson, I think for the final time, we can head out there again with no breakages on track. We're hearing that these cars are holding up perfectly well to the rigours of racing. Here we are then for the final time in this pairing, race number 4.
I think the designer of Aegis Racing is already thinking about how he can change that design.
Yeah, absolutely.
But congrats for the innovation. And we have Peregrine taking it with a 1.497. But again, Aegis Racing kind of dropping the time a little bit from that race number 2. So consistency, a lot of margin to improve. That's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, really interesting to see the two teams there and the sort of clashing contrast between times as the racing goes on. But like you say, we've seen a lot of consistency here between the teams, and interesting to see how they do differ between lanes 1 and 2. I mean, there shouldn't really be any change on the face of it, but it is often fascinating just to see how how the performance does change. Right, Lawrence, immediately back to you there over on the tech pad. I know you've got some information on the next two teams up on track.
So for the next race we have PhotoMe Racing and we have Vertex Racing. So we've got quite a tall car here in PhotoMe Racing with that rear wing just above the CO2 chamber. So I thought I might offer a little bit of insight on the frontal areas of the cars. So the drag force experienced by the car is actually a product of the frontal area. So by getting that down, you do get an advantage. So I think we might see this quite short Vertex Racing car, very neatly packed. A bit faster perhaps, but they are both very close to that 65 gram weight limit, so I think it's going to be a very close battle, but also both teams with a chance to top that leaderboard.
Yeah, interesting to see them again. Like you say, very, very stark contrast between the cars. I mean, are we seeing almost kind of mini professional class style cars here, Lawrence? They're starting to look a little bit more kind of pointy and a bit more profiled, as if we, you know, the sort of slimline bodies that we see in the pro class.
Yes, I mean, both of these designs have clearly had some advanced CAD work go into them, and those CNC milled bodies that you find in the Pro Class 2, and just really, really nicely done. I think the build, particularly on the Vertex car, looks very impressive, so I expect that car to hold up well.
Well, talk about commentator's curse, Lawrence. Let's hope that doesn't come true. But yeah, here we go. Nelson, I think we're ready for the first race. So out onto the racetrack, and Nelson Vale, across to you.
Right, so race number 1, lane 1, PhotoMe Racing, and lane 2, Vertex Racing. And there they go. Oh, that was close.
Yeah, that was close.
With Vertex Racing taking it with a 1.390, followed very close by PhotoMe Racing with 1.417.
Yeah, just under 300ths of a second separating these two cars there in race number 1. Well, I think we're hearing from the track guys, there's no issues out there. There's no breakages at all, so as Lawrence correctly predicted so far, we're seeing strong build quality and robust cars. So let's hope that they can continue this pace. Nelson, we're going to head back to track for race number 2.
Race number 2, still in the same lane. PhotoMe Racing in lane 1, Vertex Racing in lane 2.
You could say like there was an immediate advantage there, couldn't you?
With Vertex Racing taking it with a 1.348. PhotoMe Racing, decent time, 1.442, but I had a lot of margin to improve. Probably lane 2 magic?
Yeah, you could see that just in the initial launch phase. I think Vertex Racing sped out in front, and you could tell that there was already that advantage, and I think it's just, you know, continued to hold that advantage for the rest of the race. Well, that was race number 2. Of course, at this point we bring the cars back. The track team out there are swapping the cars over onto the alternate lane, and we'll see if we have had a marked improvement, change, haven't we, in the times between lane 1 and 2 so far in some of the races. It could be the car. We've no way of proving whether it is or isn't the cars, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see when we head back out to the track, Nelson, for race number 3.
You know, interesting would be to hear the story behind the name of PhotoMe Racing.
Yeah, I am intrigued.
Really curious.
Yeah.
So we swapped lanes, and
oh, it's tight again.
We have it with Vertex Racing with a 1.414, but look at that, with PhotoMe Racing with a 1.416. So definitely improving lane 2 for PhotoMe Racing. And look how close the split times are. With actually PhotoMe Racing arriving first at the split gate, but Vertex Racing taking it.
Absolutely there. Lawrence, you picked something out about that race.
And I'd just like to draw your eyes to one of the things on shots there as we see the cars in the deceleration system. We can see that that taller PhotoMe Racing rear wing that I commented on earlier sitting above the level of the brushes, and especially when we get onto the professional class later, which is lovingly referred to by Nelson as the glass class, because the regulations open up so much, you can have some quite elaborate designs. It really becomes important to also design with endurance in mind. So that rear wing that just sits above the brushes, doesn't have all that friction on it, and staying in one piece.
Lawrence, you mentioned that, and I always do wonder, you know, how much the teams test, you know, destruction of their cars, because of course it's not every day you can walk into a building with F1 in schools track in it. I mean, we know a lot of the teams do virtual CAD testing, but I mean, for example, you've got your World Finals car here with you. How much sort of destruction testing did you do on that rear wing in particular? Because it strikes me as a very wide rear wing, almost kind of asking for trouble. I mean, how much did you put it through its paces?
So as you can see here, yes, this rear wing goes to the maximum width of the car, which is actually the maximum allowed width, which means it really does experience the full force of those brushes. We actually had this go wrong with testing, so the rear wing was just pulled back until you reached the limit of our 3D printed component and it snapped. But from that, we were able to redesign the component and add just this little support below the canister chamber, which it's surprising how just that little extra point of contact can really help preserve the car and keep it in one piece.
Yeah, I guess the crucial question, the proof of the pudding, did it break at the World Finals on the track?
No.
There you go, fantastic stuff. Right, Nelson, we're ready back on track, so I'm going to throw across to you again and for the next race.
So next race we have lane 1 Vertex Racing and lane 2 Photomy Racing, and let's see. We have Photomy Racing taking it with a 1.397.
Yeah. So the final race there, Photomy just pipping it at the finish. The photo finish, you could say, now.
That's the photo finish.
Absolutely. Well, great stuff from both teams. And again, just more consistent times. We're seeing a lot of consistency in the dev class. I mean, you know, they're all putting in a real strong performance. Obviously, build quality is right up there. And it is fantastic to see. Well, that is the end of the dev class racing for the London North Regional Final. Nelson, let's take a quick look at the final leaderboard then. And you can see down there all teams down to P10, who I've omitted to write a number next to. But yes, DO6, you did come 10th overall there. So Cyclone taking it first place in the dev class there with a 1.277. Nelson, I know you've just got one little asterisk here to add by the performance times, which is what exactly?
Right, so these are showing the times on the track, but they're not showing if your car is fully compliant to all of the performance regulations. And although you're going to get points for racing to receive that special fastest car award, it needs to be fully compliant with performance regulations. And this also applies to the best engineered car award.
Sure, so those two awards are reserved just for the fastest compliant car. So it could be, you know, the Cyclone actually aren't the fastest compliant car. It could be that it's P2, P3, who knows, Aegis Racing. You might be there with the fastest compliant car. But yes, a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of suspense
it's
that we like to
just to avoid those moments of, why haven't I won that award? And I was top in the leaderboard. Guys, this is just because it needs to be fully compliant with the performance regulations.
Absolutely. But the points for racing will still be tallied up according to this final standing. So well done. Congratulations to Cyclone Racing. Obviously phenomenal, running them close. And Marlin there leaping into third place successfully in the dev class racing. All right, next up, everybody, it's the professional class racing. Nelson, your favourite class. And it is, of course, time that we meet the first two teams. Mr. Lawrence Vines, I believe over on the tech pad you have got the first two professional class teams teed up and ready for us. And I know this is an intriguing head-to-head, isn't it?
Very much so. We've really got a battle of the heavyweights to start our racing in the professional class, with both teams actually qualifying for the World Finals last year. And just a few weeks ago, actually, Team IQ managed to come P5 in the world. So I expect they're wanting to qualify again, maybe go for the top spot. We can see actually that they've got it bang on down to 50.0 grams, the very minimum weight you're allowed, whereas Eclipse have possibly left that tiny bit of margin for shipping, make sure they're not underweight. Something that we can see on these cars actually, they've got a very different philosophy at the front end, whereas Eclipse have this low front wing. Team IQ have similar elements at the bottom, but their actual legal front wing element is housed above the front wheels. Wow. So that'll just be keeping the air down the car, possibly passing it along to that rear wing. They also have different side pod philosophies. So Eclipse has this flat plane which is directing the air outwards, and then a very abrupt brake before it cuts back inwards. So we can see here that they want the flow to detach and go around the rear wheels, whereas Team IQ have this convex surface, which is encouraging the air to just stick to it with the Coanda effect and just get in between those rear wheels. So two very similar cars in terms of weight and build quality, so but some very different aerodynamic philosophies.
Cool, he's done it again. Coanda effect. I mean, Lawrence, is there a chance that you can explain at some point, maybe later in the show, the Coanda effect for our viewers? Because I know myself and Nelson just sort of sat there then and went, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure that it will be interesting for the guys at home to be able to see what exactly you mean by the Coanda effect. But yeah, I mean, some real interesting differences. Lawrence, if you had to pick a winner here, and I know this is difficult for you, but who is your money on with these two teams?
Whoa, this is too close to call. I have to say, with possibly the narrower track, I think we'll see Team IQ take the lead in that first stage of the race. But maybe I'll call on Eclipse to get that cruise sector win. So.
So Eclipse.
I'm hedging my bets here.
Yeah, big time. That was about the most politically correct answer you could have given. Well, both teams are probably going to be winners in my eyes, was effectively what you said.
Just before we go to racing, just again as a tip, I would just like to say to the teams that these two cars were really easy to scrutineer. And one of the things that we always forget to mention, Mark, is that when teams submit their cars, they also have to submit a document that includes all of their technical drawings and renderings. And especially the technical drawings document helps a lot during scrutineering, because we need to so that document helps us to identify where is the rear wing, where is the front wing, where is the nose cone, where is the virtual cargo located. And these two teams have produced very, very detailed documents, and that really helps with scrutineering. So to all the teams that sometimes just struggle to produce their technical drawings, that's one thing that really help the judges in future competitions that you guys enter, just to produce a very clean and easy to interpret technical drawing.
Yeah, and I guess that's it. You've got to try and, as a team, you've got to try and give us documents as if to try and show somebody who's never seen an F1 in Schools car the various features of your design. Don't assume that because we see them all the time that we will interpret where your front wing is, where your wheel support systems are, where your rear wing starts and finishes. It's for you to explicitly show us with a little bit of hatching, shading or some colour on those technical diagrams exactly where you want Nelson the scrutineers to measure those rear wing, front wing spans and the different elements of your car. So, yep, you heard it from Nelson. Thumbs up for both cars here. I think, guys, we've talked about these two teams long enough now. I think it's time to see how they get on track.
Let's go racing.
Let's head to the track, Nels, and let's see what happens in race number 1.
Lane 1, Eclipse. Lane 2, Team IQ. The battle starts now, and we have Team Eclipse taking it with a 1.062, and Team IQ with 1.131.
That is a truly remarkable time. I think we've only potentially seen one more team go quicker than Eclipse. We won't mention who at the moment, but that is remarkable. I mean, Team IQ, no slouches there. 1.131. I think they'll probably hope to do perhaps a little bit better in the second race. I know they did go quicker than that at the World Finals, so potentially it's just a case of the car bedding in. As Lawrence, you mentioned a few times, haven't you? What is it exactly that can sort of ease up or lubricate over the races?
Okay, so the professional class is the only class in F1 in Schools where the teams are allowed to use bearings. It's not mandatory, but it definitely makes a big difference. So now these tend to have a bit of evolution throughout the racing. So you might see them get slower because little bits of debris, little bits of dust, or just tiny little particles get in them, stop those balls rotating. But equally, to help them move smoothly, most bearings include lubricant, and when they run they'll get hotter, and that lubricant will become less dense, meaning that it provides less resistance to the movement. So it could go either way, but this is definitely a big factor in the professional class.
Yeah, thanks Lawrence. So a lower viscosity essentially as those bearings warm up and the lubricant warms up inside them. So potentially we'll see the IQ car gradually get faster and faster, but that is a heck of a pace that Eclipse have set there. Well, Nelson, let's head back to the track and let's see if Eclipse can capitalise on this, or if indeed IQ can start to turn the tables.
Race number 2, Eclipse in lane 1, Team IQ in lane 2. Lights off. Oh, that's close again.
Looked close, didn't it?
And that's Eclipse taking it with a 1.123 and a 1.136 for Team IQ. But look, in the split gate, Team IQ crossed it at first.
Yeah, interesting. So we got the overtake moment then, didn't we? IQ actually out of the blocks quicker. Potentially, Lawrence, as you were saying, that lower rolling resistance at the start, maybe from the bearings just starting to wear in, could be another number of factors. But love a little bit of 1, 2, 3 there from Eclipse as well. Congratulations on one of my favourite times set.
I'm interested to see if that first time of Eclipse was with the car just perfect start that first race, and now if it's already suffering from the pressures of racing, from all of the pressures that Lawrence has been talking about, especially on the deceleration system.
It's very interesting to see if that pace does maintain or whether it continues to drop off. Interesting. Well, Nelson, I think we can head back to the track now for race number 3. So let's see how this battle evolves.
Yeah, so the Giants have swapped lanes, and we have Team IQ in lane 1 and Eclipse in lane 2.
Oh, now that looks super close.
And we have Team IQ taking it with a 1.103 and Eclipse with a 1.16. So Team IQ actually won the race now. Very consistent time on Eclipse from race number 2.
It is, yeah.
But Team IQ is getting faster.
Yeah, they are. As we maybe just alluded to, that IQ car seems to be just building pace and generally getting a little bit quicker. Quickest to the split gate and then quickest to the finish. That's 3 races down, guys. We've just got the 1 to go, and this is finally poised now. It's 2 wins for Eclipse and 1 for IQ, but of course those times are quick. Eclipse still at the moment with that blistering time in the 1.06s. Nels, I can't call it. Let's see how we get on the track for our final race.
Final race. Tense moments here. Cars looking great on track. Lights off.
Didn't even see the finish.
And then we have a Team IQ taking it again with a 1.106 and Team Eclipse with a 1.126.
Yeah, there it is, a 1.105 IQ. That is, I think that's their quickest time overall. Still not quite up to the Eclipse time set in race 1. I mean, that, Nels, maybe you called it. That was just the car at absolute peak performance before, just as Lawrence mentioned, maybe just a little bit of atmospheric dust, particles, bit of wear potentially going on in those bearings.
I'm sure something must have happened there with that perfect condition and then suffering some of those pressures. But look, Team IQ was very, very consistent throughout the 4 races. And let's remember the teams that in a kind of a world final stage, teams race 8 times and then they have the knockout. So a car may actually be doing how many races in total with knockout, Lawrence? About 14?
That's what a good, impossible question to throw to us live in the set, Nelson. Lawrence, any guesses at that? What was going to be while we try and work it out?
Well, of course, it depends how far you get in the knockout racing.
It's
but
between 12, 14.
I'm going to say it's about 18, I think, isn't
18?
it?
A maximum around 20, yeah.
Yeah, a maximum of around 20.
What I wanted to say is that when you have a very consistent car doing times in all of the races, that's really important because you know you can trust the performance.
Lovely stuff. And thanks for throwing Lawrence under the bus there, Nelson. That was a great bit of live punditry. Right, we've talked a lot about engineering. Let's get now a little closer look at how exactly design and engineering is judged. Design and engineering sits at the heart of F1 in schools. Teams produce a portfolio worth 180 points. The competition judges are looking for evidence of design concepts, 3D modelling, computer-aided analysis or CAA, the use of CAD/CAM, computer-aided design and manufacture, the manufacturing and assembly of the car, the research and development journey a team has gone on, testing processes such as CFD or computational fluid dynamics, the design process evaluation and the presentation of the team's document. Portfolios are presented in A3 format, with development class producing a 5-page portfolio and professional class producing 10-page portfolios. Such high-quality work demands highly qualified judges. The engineering sector provides many of its finest minds to help judge F1 in schools, with a stellar cast of names from Formula 1, the automotive industry, aerospace industry and beyond. And back to me in the studio. Lawrence, I believe you have been taking a closer look at the team's design and engineering work. So what exactly have you picked out from the teams?
So in the design and engineering, I was actually going to talk to you today a little bit about the pitching moment. So
fantastic. Let's have it.
So this black and white dot here in the centre of the car represents the centre of gravity of the car. So this is all to do with the different materials that make the car and where the weight ends up focused. So then we have the forces acting on the car when it races, because all of these act around the centre of gravity. So to calculate the moment, you multiply the magnitude of the force between the perpendicular distance between the force and the centre of gravity. So this, a centre of mass in fact. So this would be between here, measured in that distance, or for the thrust, it would be measured in that distance. So you total all of these moments, the lift and down force of the front and rear wings, and the thrust provided to the car by the cartridge, and you get what's called a pitching moment. Now, this is something that you may have noticed a few times on the video feeds. Right at the start of the races, the car might have sunk a little bit at the back, or nosedived into the track. And this little bit of, this change of balance of the car might cause a little bit of friction, maybe air gets under the front and causes it to just raise a bit, pull a bit on the tether line and cause that little bit more drag. So there's one team that's done actually quite a lot of work to iron that out and make sure that they don't have any pitching moment in the car at all. So that will be Eclipse, who we've just seen race. So they tested how much effect this had on the car by making this incredible rig which allowed them to change the centre of the mass on the car. You see, they've got this ballast that can be moved both forwards and backwards and up and down on the car. So really insane R&D work here, and I really want to see this thing in person. The next time we're in an in-person event, please bring this.
Wow, he's done it again. Lawrence, that is a truly breathtaking bit of, I mean, firstly, analysis from you and work from the team. I mean, is that the kind of thing that we see kind of on a routine level at the World Finals, or does this still stand out to you as something that is kind of over and above what you'd normally expect at any level in the competition?
I've never seen this before. This is truly unique and just top-level stuff. This is Eclipse saying, here we are, we're ready for the World Finals and we'll take anyone on. I think just showing the level of work they're doing in terms of just development, what else can they do? And yeah, I think this is incredible.
Wow, I would agree, and thank you so much again for your, first of all, for explaining the whole principle of centre of mass. I mean, that was a really cracking little diagram to see, Nelson. I think we've certainly learned something there, and I hope for the teams at home watching, that maybe puts, you know, a bit more meat on the bones of these theories that perhaps you hear about, but don't fully make sense until we're shown properly with some nice diagrams.
Let us just say that if F1 needs anyone to do technical commentary, I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
There he is. Yeah, get him in front of a screen. That's the man for the job.
Just saying.
If you need a pair of blundering idiots to build up to that as well, we are available. But anyway, moving swiftly on. Lawrence, I believe you're still in position on the tech pad, and you have some information about the final team in the Pro class up on track.
So the last car racing today is the car from Vulcan Racing at Harrow School. We can see some very, very intricate elements here. We can see that their front and rear wing support, I think this must be at a millimetre or less. So let's hope that they've built this to be very stiff so it doesn't break in the deceleration system. But I am liking the look of this car. We can see that where the red section of the car starts, it's again quite a thin line. So we've actually got this channel through the front of the car. And what that allows is for them to reduce that frontal area, but less than what we'd think. So I think this car has a real chance of setting a good time. It is a little overweight, but I think it will punch above its weight.
Oh, very nice little link there, Lawrence. I mean, I think we saw a similar concept, didn't we, with Momentum Racing from Exeter School in the West Regional Final, where they sort of chopped a very straight line across the front of the model block section, but had this great channel underneath. And if memory serves me, I think the Momentum car really did quite well in the racing. So it'll be interesting to see here how Vulcan get on. I mean, that front wing, Lawrence, that looks to protrude a long way, you know, from the sort of point of contact. Are we concerned at all about the fragility there, or do you think it's good?
It's something where I wonder if they've tested maybe a central mounting point too. Yeah. Obviously they are concerned about that frontal area, they've clearly focused on that, but let's see, because there will be a lot of strain on that in the deceleration system.
Yeah, well, we'll have to find out how it goes out on track. Nelson, I believe you're poised and ready to talk us through this one. Of course, the car going up against the Ghost car in lane 2, which we've discussed the pros and cons about. No turbulent wake, but of course no slipstream as well, so potentially might even out overall. But Vulcan, the stage is all yours. The stage is set, and we're going to head out onto the track.
So there we have it, Vulcan Racing in lane 1. Car looking amazing on the track, and lights off. So we just need to wait now for the system to calculate if there's a car arriving on lane 2.
So a little momentary delay while the computer just figures that out.
So we have a 1.147 for Vulcan Racing race number 1.
Okay, so pretty competitive time. I mean, we saw times not too far away from that in the IQ and Eclipse race. Of course, Eclipse's first time just, you know, eclipsing all of these, but yeah, not a bad time at all. And I think Vulcan stepping up to the Pro Class for the first time this year can be really impressed with how the cars started the racing here. Guys, I think we're ready for race number 2. So Nelson, back to you in the comm box, or sat next to me in the studio, as it were, for race number 2.
Race number 2, still in the same lane. Let's remember that the cars race twice in each of the lanes, and there we have it. It's crossed the finish line. I think he arrived safely in the deceleration system. Yeah, the rear wing looks perfect, and we have a 1.168.
Okay.
So very consistent with the first time.
Yeah, reasonably consistent. A little tiny bit slower, but of course we've seen differences in between lane 1 and lane 2. I think Nelson, hearing from the track guys, there's no issues out on track. The Vulcan car has passed the finish line safely, which is, I mean, again, you know, to say that we were concerned, Lawrence, and we were looking at that car going, was it going to make the finish or not? For a first effort at a Pro Class car, it's doing well.
I have to say, I'm very impressed. Not only has the car survived so far, but those times, they're incredibly close to what we saw from Eclipse and IQ, who we've discussed are really world-class teams. So this on a first-time effort, and they clearly know their stuff as well. 20% overweight, but with that frontal area, maybe a few other tricks, they've really got the car going well.
Yeah, there we go. So you've had it again, thumbs up from Lawrence Vines, and I think me and Nelson are very, very excited to see how this car goes in race number 3. So let's head out there again, Nelson, for race number 3.
Race number 3 now with Vulcan Racing in lane 2, about to race. And there we have it.
Go on, Vulcan.
So just a couple more seconds.
Just building the tension here, aren't we?
Track team taking the car out of the deceleration system. Everything looking good. And we have a 1.182 for Vulcan Racing.
Okay, so there it is. So, I mean, we've seen the car just, every race just decelerate by 100th of a second. I think it was a 1.16, then a 1.17, 1.18. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, these times are incredibly consistent. We're talking about 100th of a second between the cars' times. Really, really impressive stuff, this. Again, no breakages reported by the track guys we're both hearing. So we're going to head back out to the track then for not just the final race with Vulcan Racing, but the final race of the London North Regional Final. So Nelson, for the final time, it's over to you.
Thank you, Mark. And we have Vulcan Racing in lane 2, looking great. All lights are going to go on. They go off. System has recorded the info. We just need to wait a few more seconds.
And we'll soon find out if Vulcan have posted their quickest time yet.
And there it comes, but we have a 1.192, so exactly like you were saying.
There you go, beautiful symmetry again. So just a fractional 100th of a second, almost to the 100th as well, different in every race, which is remarkable. I mean, yeah, mega plaudits to Vulcan Racing, and of course all the Pro Class teams. Super bit of consistent Pro Class racing. I think we've seen 3 really impressive teams. Lawrence, we just mentioned it briefly earlier on, and I think you've got a little bit of info on the Coanda effect, just to sort of share with our teams and to help me and Nelson as well understand what on earth you're talking about.
Yes, so a bit earlier I mentioned air following these convex surfaces of the Team IQ side pods. So I'll explain a little bit about that, because the Coanda effect is essentially, it's a phenomenon which means that fluids, such as liquid as well as air, actually follow convex surfaces. So I've made a simple little diagram to kind of demonstrate that with an F1 in School's front wing. So we see that with a concave surface, with the blue being representing the airflow and the red, of course, the front wing, we see that the air spirals up and is a little more liable to become turbulent, which will create drag further down the car. Whereas with the convex surface, it actually follows that curve and stays attached. So this is something that I've seen mentioned in quite a few teams' portfolios. So some really, really informed designs out there.
Thank you, Lawrence. And that is, I think we consider ourselves informed as well, Nels. Thank you, Lawrence, for all your analysis, and thank you for teaching myself and Nelson not just a thing or two, but some handy phrases that we can now use with confidence. Thank you again, Mr. Vines. Now, Nelson, we've come to the end of the professional class racing, so let's take a final look at the pro class leaderboard. And there it is, that quite exceptional time set in race 1 by Eclipse of a 1.062 remains the quickest time. There they are, top of the leaderboard. Now, you know, again, we've said it, those times are super consistent, super close, and of course that will translate into pretty even point scores between those three teams. So yeah, lots of points heading your way, Eclipse, IQ and Vulcan Racing. Massively well done. Should we have a look at the overall leaderboard now? Because we can now finally see where the teams have all ranked on the final overall leaderboard. Here it is, and just highlighting the class winners as well. So of course Eclipse up there, Cyclone are class winners in development class, and then Blue Wyvern in P7 are first of the entry class teams. It has to be said that Blue Wyvern, I mean, they punched massively above their weight there. This is of course the top 10. So we're seeing here that the class winners are all in the top 7. And really Blue Wyvern standing head and shoulders there above some other teams. Really development class. Look at that, in the top 10, just 3.5 tenths of a second covering the top 10. And then as we see towards the bottom end, the 11 to 18, again, we're still within 1.9 seconds, which from Aegis Racing is a remarkable time considering that bold design of the sort of almost the aviation fuselage effect they got there. So yeah, really, really close times and amazing racing there from all the teams. Well, Nelson, that was not just a big show, but a really entertaining show. Lawrence, again, thank you so much for your input. Really enjoyed having you here in the studio, so thank you, Lawrence. Nelson, we're probably just going to wrap up by saying a few words about all the work the teams have done in getting this far.
Again, it's important to say that just by being able to compete in the event, the teams have went above and beyond anything that we had imagined possible a few months ago. With these troubled times, I mean, we were questioning ourselves, will the teams be able to access their labs, their materials, the CNC machines, the 3D printers to produce their cars? They did it. No obstacle was too big. They managed to compete. Thank you so much, guys, but the merit is yours, so I just deserve a big congratulations and a round of applause.
Oh, I think they've earned it again. So from everybody here in the studio, another massive round of applause, woo, to the North London teams, and in fact all the teams in all the regions around the UK. Well, Nelson, you mentioned it just briefly before, the teams have been doing all sorts of work away from the racing, of course. All those points are being added up and the judges' points are being totaled to create an awards show for every region, so stay tuned for that awards show. That will be coming up very soon here on F1 in Schools UK YouTube. But for now, it's goodbye from us in the studio, goodbye from Lawrence, goodbye from me and Nelson, and we'll see you very soon, folks. Goodbye for now.